in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, could either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Yes. Shout out to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode. Case closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Highest level conversations on the most relevant topics in the space, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and click that like button. Click the share button. Hey, look, shout out to Snuggles. She says, drop the link. Shout out to you. And shout out to the panel. LAR, how's it going?
Is that LAR?
Is that LAR?
I don't think so.
Oh, my bad. I didn't look before because anyways, blah, blah, blah.
Shout
out to Nagone 11.
Oh, I see.
Hey, how you doing?
What's that?
Okay. How is it going? How's it going? Okay, well, ladies and
LAR
gentlemen,
is on his way though.
We got. Okay, there you go.
There he is.
Well, anyways, let me ask you this, Kaizo. What do you know about the microplastics, right? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump, the case again, and on that case, right? There are matters of fact, there are matters of the law, and there are outcomes which are all public and whatnot, right? So it's not a place to be arguing about matters of fact or matters of the law. Google it, ChatGPT and whatnot, and we'll be highlighting some of those facts, if you will. And then, with regards to those facts, there are other facts such as the possibility of appeal, in which one can then speculate and such, right? But I hope that the reason why I said that is clear. We're not going to be arguing over trivialities. But Kaizo, what do you know about the microplastics that they're finding in testicles? It's just kind of like it's an interesting. Do you have any scientific data on that, sir, Kaizo?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's several things here, and again, we're speculating, right? So I want to make that very clear. I'll talk about some basic science as well as what's really going on. So, in terms of like microplastics, right? These things are what we call things that can bioaccumulate in your body because they can't be actually, your kidneys and your liver and your body generally can't really metabolize them, right? We don't have the sort of conditions to metabolize plastics. So what they do is they do accumulate around your bloodstream, and of course, some of them are going to end up in certain places, and of course, like testicles, right? And of course, it's going to impact on your ability to get women pregnant. So that is a real thing, right? It's not. It's not one of these bro science things, right? That's why it's not really good to eat from plastic. I think you're African, right? I don't know if you remember when you're younger or seeing your friends using these metallic sort of iron meshes to clean the pots, right? Some of these would come and stay on the pot, right? The issue is iron is not really that dangerous to us, especially the iron rust, which is actually good for a bloodstream. So microplastics is the same sort of situation. Yes, there is some bioaccumulation of microplastics, and yes, if it ends up in certain places, it might impact on your ability to make more eggs.
All right. Yes. Because we didn't know if I was gonna start with this one, or maybe we'll address it on later. There was a conversation, backstage, whether to start with the ball play or not start with the ball play. LAR wanted to go for the ball play first. Dr. Thunder typically reserves the ball play for later. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go to Donald Trump, right? And I want to share something here, if I may, with regards to certain facts of the case, right? Just so we're all on the same page, if you will. I'm reading this from the AP, Associated Press. Donald Trump became the first former American president to be convicted of felony crimes. Thursday, a New York jury found him guilty of 34 charges. The number may be significant, but maybe not significant. But the actual issue here is a couple of misdemeanors, one which was argued was done to serve the other. And that's how you raise a misdemeanor from, get two misdemeanors and make it a felony. If this misdemeanor was done in the service of another crime. The first crime here is paying hush money. It's not really the crime, but then falsification of the financial documents when he said that hush money was part of campaign finance, campaign expenditure, right? And then the other crime will be the disruption of the election, or basically the manipulation of the election, or interrupting, messing around with the elections, right? So these two put together put him in that particular position, right? And we'll get into a little bit more of this as we go along here, but I just wanted to ask, and maybe I'll start with Nagon here. Let me set the situation like this. The situation is somebody says, hey, this is a win-win situation for Donald Trump. If he lost, in other words, if he did not get convicted, then people will be like, you see, yeah, it's lawfare and it's unfair and blah, 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 go Trump. If he gets convicted, it's lawfare. You see what they're. So what do you think about the fact that perhaps did Trump lose anything? Go ahead and comment how you will, Nagon.
Well, I certainly think within his base, within the Trump base, it's not going to affect him. It's not going to affect him or affect him that much at all. Inside, once again, I said inside of the MAGA base that he has, that's a pretty rabidly, loyal base to him. I don't believe that this is going to have a great effect on him. Where I think this might be more of a factor, certainly within the community of the independents, which are the largest voting bloc right now, as we see. And bringing the independents on with him, some are going to look upon that negatively. So we'll really have to see how this plays out over time. I suspect felons running for office and felons get elected, especially nationwide. I don't believe that will play well for him out in the longer run, but let's just see. I don't think that's going to make a stronger impact on the independent side of the vote. But as far as Trump's base and him being elected as a nominee, of course, and being, that selected nominee and all that for the Republican Party and running for president, none of this is not going to affect any of that.
Well, Kaiser, what do you think about that aspect there? And Nagon made a couple of good points. Nagon made this side point about the precedent, right? The precedent that this particular thing sets, and felons being elected and whatnot. That, if you take Donald Trump out of the situation, this is my particular kind of coloring of it right now, just from one particular perspective. Take Donald Trump out of the situation, right? This does not mean that any felon now is just going to be able to. That's not still going to fly, right? But Kaizo, what are your thoughts here? Donald Trump, convicted felon. Is this a win-win? Could he have lost? Did he lose? What did he lose? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I don't want to be one of these guys, but I think time will tell. and I think the election ballot is going to tell this story much more. Personally, I don't think it's going to impact too much negatively on whatever sort of election parameters that would have happened or could have happened. I think, generally speaking, this will strengthen his main base, and they'll look at this as a witch hunt, right? So um, I doubt that very few conservatives are going to think that he's really a felon, right? They'll just think, well, this is a witch hunt by the liberals, so this proves everything. So I think it will strengthen his main core. What will happen also? A lot of black men are already seeing niggas for Trump, right? Movement going on, and I know that's a small sort of number, but I do think that's going to have some kind of impact culturally on this whole situation. So a lot of black people are going to be like, yeah, you see, he's just like us. The government is against him, the rules and the laws and everything like that. So I don't see it impacting negatively on the elections. Now, what I do think will happen though, negatively, is impact on his money. As a felon now, does he still have the same licenses under all the operating business structures that he has? Does he need to put someone else in charge of them? Because obviously, okay, I'll give an example, right? But if you've been convicted of certain, sensitive crimes like violence or, SA, you can't really work with vulnerable people, for example. So, is this going to impact his licenses and his business? And I think that's the main thing here. But in terms of elections, conservatives don't believe that or rather, his main core voters don't really believe that he's really been convicted. They just think this is a witch hunt, and I think that will do well for him.
All right. That's pretty good. And I'm gonna ask you next, LAR, but we'll just read a little bit of this. It seems to be Trump's reaction is, or well, let me see. Let me just read. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. An angry Trump told reporters after leaving the courtroom. Yeah, so it was Trump that said this. The real verdict going to be November 5th by the people, just like Kaiso was alluding to there. They know what happened, and everyone knows what happened here. Repeating himself in, classic Trump style there. But yeah, good point about his money, Kaizo. And there are certain businesses where the principal owner, something, president, whatever, needs to be sort of quote, licensed in that space. There are not too many of those. But to the degree to which it is a kind of a business like that, like this, you're a real estate agent and you became a felon, you're going to need to sell or, transfer that over to someone else. And there are ways in which, that sale could be financed. The sale could be financed such as, in other words, you get paid a salary, for in perpetuity or whatever. That could be the way in which you transfer that business over to this other person. But good point in general. So LAR I mean, I was gonna say, did Dr. Thunder lose anything? I don't think Dr. Thunder was on trial, at least not in the state of New York. But did Donald Trump lose anything, LAR?
Did he lose anything? Probably not. It just puts, I will say this, it puts his hypocrisy and white America's hypocrisy just on Front Street one more time, and people are trying to just let it brush it under the rug. Like, let's just talk about Diddy because he's black and he's in trouble. That's what this is. Because I mean, I don't know. People say, the Republican Party is the party of accountability, right? You're supposed to own up to your own actions and all that. And let's just be honest. If a man says that the trial was rigged, and he's the same man that paid for a trial to be rigged with 5 guys in New York, am I going to take him as serious? Not really. But if a man is found guilty of tampering with money, which he's had a lifetime of doing that, nobody had a problem with it. But this time it's because he's a former president and a current presidential candidate, and he used some of the campaign funds to pay off, a side chick. And he's still going to run again, and he's going to have campaign funds. And there's not going to be a problem with that because, hey, he's white. Who cares? As Nagon was talking about, he going to be a felon. All of a sudden, personal responsibility is not a big deal.
Okay, so LAR, and this is a little bit tongue in cheek here, but okay, so we set the Park Five aside, and we set another thing aside. But what you mentioned now about using campaign funds to pay a side chick, so if we just look at that and we talk man to man there, he could have said it was his. In other words, it wasn't like, oh, he needed to go into campaign funds, right? It's about the reporting. So would you be okay if he just didn't, if he put it as like a personal expenditure or something because he was using his campaign, or anyways, a campaign lawyer and putting it that way, or would you be okay in that sense? Like, okay, it's his. He didn't say it was campaign funds. He just paid the $500K for by himself or something.
Let's just say it this way: if Barack Obama did it, they'll have OJ movies about him. So, am I okay with it? I really don't care. He's a white guy who can get away with everything. Doesn't matter. He's going to run for president. He's going to get more campaign funds. He's going to do something probably silly with those. It doesn't matter. He's going to get elected. He's going to pardon himself. And then all of a sudden, those same Trump and all those other white people like him, if something happens with somebody who isn't white, personal responsibility. that you said put the Central Park Five aside. I can't. He said it was rigged. He said it was rigged. He said this trial was rigged, even though he was part of rigging the trial. So, my thing about this whole situation, and I've said before, he gonna be guilty. He gonna win the presidency. I could care less. But it's just interesting to see once again how people play this eyes retarded boss game when a white guy does something this egregious. It's egregious. And we know how this is going to end. We're going to act like, let's give 75,000 caveats and just admit it. You go soft on the white guy.
And there you have it. LAR has made his submission, as they call it in some places. And ladies and gentlemen, please go ahead and like the stream, share the stream as you come in, leave a comment. Shout out to Renaissance Rogue here, but I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You see how Renaissance Rogue made a point. One problem though. Jonathan Majors really got a felony that's a misdemeanor, and he has no career. But you can be president if you white.
Well, there you go. There you go. Dr. Thunder, you get to comment here on this first round, and it's about anything you have heard any of the other commenters said from Nagon, kind of breaking it down from his base perspective, it's not going to affect him, but might not serve well with the independents. He talked about the general precedent also, or he alluded to the general precedent of the felony, or felon, I should say, running for office and whatnot. But the question on the table is, did he lose anything? Dr. Thunder, what do you say?
Yeah, so on my platform, I had my open panel on Fridays. I do my 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday, Rolling Thunder program. Fridays are open panels. And one of the topics that we discussed was the, conviction of Trump, and is that going to affect the black vote? My assessment there was no, it's not going to affect the black vote. And I don't think that it will affect those that are against Trump, the folks that are for Trump. The only folks that potentially would be impacted were maybe some folks that are still undecided, but that's a shrinking sort of class of people. So this is, I don't think this does anything. I think people that were going to vote for him are going to vote for him. People that were not are not going to. I think that there's this belief that somehow because he's being seemingly railroaded and they're making up stuff. And why are they trying to convict a former president on some basically a process sort of crime like this? It's like, well, see, black folks identify with this because they've been, railroaded by the justice system and like this.
You don't think any of that's going to change anything?
I don't think
I'll let you continue here, but I just wonder if you had any thoughts in general about this idea of the kind of last minute decider, right? In other words, one way of, you said something and I'm noticing in what you just said, the die is cast, right? People are going to vote the way they're going to vote, right? And I've always been a little skeptical about that idea of, the interview man on the street 5 days before the election. And he's like, well, I'm still, I can kind of see both sides. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. Unless you actually have people literally rolling a dice or literally rather flipping a coin, I should say, that I think people really do have an idea of what they're going to do. They just don't want to tell anybody what it is. So that's different. And or they want to appear to be the deciding factor. They want to look important. They want to feel as though what it is and the way that they vote actually makes a difference. So that's fine. But Obsidian came up on the panel. And he seems to think that this actually is going to push more black men to vote for Trump. I can't see that. I just don't see that as being the thing. And I'm a third party guy. I'm not swayed by this at all. I think it's all hogwash on both sides. I still think that the interest of black men and boys are not issues for either party. So, based on what is most important to me, I don't see how this has any impact, any effect on that whatsoever. So I think it's a big zero.
A big zero there. And we'll continue here on this topic, right? I want to play something here, just a little bit from these dudes.
Oh, let me say this last thing real quick. Let me say this last thing. There was an election where one of the candidates was incarcerated. So he actually was, and he got 10% of the vote or something.
Was that in Chicago? Sounds like a Chicago thing.
Right. No, this is presidential election. And he got 10% of the vote or something like this. He was incarcerated. So there's no rule against running for president and being, not just a convicted felon, but a felon serving time. So, and with technology, you pretty much can still participate in all the stuff that you'd have to. We just have to be virtually, right? So.
And we'll get a little bit more into some of these facts that you alluded to about, well, what does it affect, right? What does it really even mean? Let me play a little bit of this. And we're moving towards now the chances of appeal or the ideas in the case itself, those matters of facts and matters of the law, right? You have these facts or fact pattern, as lawyers like to call it, and the court does what it does vis-a-vis how those facts affect a particular law. And there's some facts here, which is, the combination of two misdemeanors or some interpretations, two misdemeanors becoming a felony, right? That kind of a thing. And that this might be a little petty, if you will. It's the kind of thing where, look, putting this expense on this side of the ledger or on that side of the ledger is something that just happens every day if you run a business. So it's like, do you claim it or you're not? Which part do you want to put it? Is it my salary, or is it for this, or is it for that? Does it really matter at the end of the day? So speeding ticket is kind of what I'm thinking. But anyways, I'm just pointing out those kinds of things that people can nitpick on, which we're going to start nitpicking on right now, starting with Nagone in a second, about, well, possibility of or chances in an appeal. Does he have a leg to stand on and whatnot?
Today in the law being fair, today in lawfare, depending on your view, Trump was found guilty on all 34 felony charges. You can choose your own framing here. Some say it's election interference. Some people are referring to this as the hush money porn star case. Other people are calling it the deep state lawfare case. The jury deliberated for about a day and a half. Trial lasted 6 weeks, include testimony from 20 witnesses. Key moment seems to have been Trump's CFO, Weiselberg, who's, I think, in jail right now for other charges, outlining the terms of the payments to Michael Cohen, the disgraced lying attorney who recorded Trump's conversations. And that's, I think, all I can tell you about this, except for maybe the sentencing is coming up. It's going to be July 11th, which is but 4 days before the RNC. Clearly a sad day for America. I'm not sure if anybody on the panel has any opinions on the Trump verdict, but let's just randomly start with you, David. Any thoughts on Trump being convicted of 34 felonies in this case?
Well, first of all, in terms of understanding this case, I think it's important to understand that both Merrick Garland's DOJ and former Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance, they looked at this case, they looked at these charges, and they passed on bringing this case. Alvin Bragg, who was a Soros-funded DA, he won a hotly contested race to succeed Vance by pledging to get Trump. And that's why he brought this case. And in order to bring these charges, he had to use a creative legal formula that turned a misdemeanor charge of falsifying business records, a charge that would have been past the statute of limitations, into a felony by claiming it was in the service of a second crime, but he never named exactly what that crime was or proved that it happened.
Okay. And the crime was named. The other crime, which is election interference, was the second crime that the first misdemeanor served. And when you multiply 2 misdemeanors, you can get a felony, to put it simply. But shout out to David Sachs here. He just kind of pointed out, okay, well, this is politically motivated by saying that, okay, because the prosecutorial, shall I say, discretion is the principle here. They get to choose what to kind of bring. And he's alluding to the fact that this particular person was elected, right, into their office to bring this thing, right? So blah, blah, blah. But Nagone, right? We're talking about...
Real quick before Nagone, real quick. There's something else that I think that's going to tend to get this whole thing, probably it could get thrown out or it could be significantly reduced. We know he's not going to do any time. And that is the fact that the presiding judge, actually contributed to Biden in the last election. So I'm sure that they're going to play that up big in the appeal process.
Shout out to one man. Shout out to one man. Cool. Disagrees fervently. A little bit of trolling there. But Nagone, okay, we're starting to get into, again, the fact patterns and whatnot, and the idea of the possibility of an appeal. Does he have a leg to stand on? Does he not have a leg to stand on? From what you know generally so far, what are your thoughts regarding that? Nagone, you there?
Nah, he gone.
That's not bad, guys. So that's just not a bad one. Good job. So let's go to you. Let me go. Hold on one second. Let me do this. I'm going to play a little bit of more of David Sachs laying out some of the pro-Trump things here, and then we'll see. Hold on one second.
First of all, in terms of understanding this case, I think it's important to understand that both Merrick Garland's DOJ and former Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance, they looked at this case, they looked at these charges, and they passed on bringing this case. Alvin Bragg, who was a Soros-funded DA, he won a hotly contested race to succeed Vance by pledging to get Trump, and that's why he brought this case. And in order to bring these charges, he had to use a creative legal formula that turned a misdemeanor charge of falsifying business records, a charge that would have been past the statute of limitations, into a felony by claiming it was in the service of a second crime, but he never named exactly what that crime was or proved that it happened. And I think it's safe to say that a case like this, which is novel and creative and torturous, would never have been brought against anybody but Trump. Now, there's about 5 different grounds for appeal on this. Number one, the judge is a Biden donor with a daughter who works for Biden. Number two, prejudicial and irrelevant evidence was admitted that should have been excluded, including Stormy Daniels' testimony. Number three, Trump was not able to call his expert in election law, former head of the FEC, Bradley Smith. Number four, the prosecution never named the second crime. And then number five, the judge let the jury pick from a range of options for what the second crime might be, including tax crimes for which no evidence was presented and federal election crimes for which the court had no jurisdiction. So my guess is that at the end of the day, this case is going to get tossed on appeal, but that's probably going to happen after the election, after November 5th. And Democrats now have what they wanted. They wanted to get out of this case 4 words: Donald Trump, convicted felon. And
Nagon, seems like you're back.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. If you heard the question,
Yeah.
which I believe you did, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, these are all political pundits. These guys are just coming here popping off. This case really was bought or was actually brought about before even Biden was in office. All right, let's not talk about that. In fact, Cohen actually did time for this. Okay, and he spent a little few months in prison, was disbarred and the whole deal and all that, and then Biden finally got elected or whatever. So this was all done before. So people are saying, hey, this is just strictly political and done by by this administration and all that. It's just not true. Ultimately, this was brought about also in the state of New York. This is not a federal case, so this is a state case. So and this is so you have to look at it from that perspective. From this is coming down from the state of New York, and the Southern District, which is no joke. I'll say this: they had to purge at least 200 jurors, prospective jurors, before, because they did not want to have anyone who could be biased, especially biased going left. So they actually did a lot of purging and removing a lot of potential jurors to get what they consider a jury of their peers and a fair and equitable jury, which actually leans more conservative than it does to let's say extremist lefties, as those were trying to say. So even based on this rather very I would say far more conservative jury that they picked, they still hit him 34-0 with all the evidence laid out. So you get jury instructions. You're instructed by the judge to, of course, look at the facts and make your judgments based on that, of which you can't say is political. This is looking at the facts of this case, and that's what they judged on. That's what they judged him on. So looking at 34-0 and appealing the case, can you appeal this? There's a possibility, but all of those shots going against him, I say an appeal is probably unlikely. All right. I know they're going to try to appeal this to the Supreme Court, where he has his political cronies there that he picked to maybe, turn the decision in his favor. But looking at from the appeals court, state of appeals, New York State Supreme Court, state of appeals, I don't see that being overturned. So not at 34, not at 34-0, not at 34-0, by a jury that is certainly more conservative than it was, let's say, liberal, because they want to make sure that did not come into being a factor there. If anybody researched and looked at how they went through jury selection on this. So
yeah, let me kind of ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
So with regards to the facts and how it was adjudicated, and you're asserting that is not political, and I don't think that anyone is really arguing that aspect is political, but the bringing of the case. So comment on that, and also just comment personally on what you consider the seriousness of the crime here, right? So it's like the seriousness of the crime, the worthwhileness of the prosecution, and also was that choice to bring it a political choice?
I do know that there was a Democratic, I think it was a state senator who actually bought the case. against Trump looking at that. So it was someone from the Democratic Party who did bring that. It certainly was not from the federal side, but they were looking at this as a certainly criminal activity and fraudulent activity. So people looked at this and judged this as a fraud. And as illegal activity. So that case was brought. Do I look at everything politically? I'm not going to say it was so ultra political, but there are those who will say that it was. Me, I have to look at what the merits of this case was based on, and was this individual actually guilty of what they're actually bringing against him? And I would have to say yes, he was, and he even admitted it himself in many ways. So yeah, this, I think this case being brought was based on the merits of this case. That's about as far as I'm going to go with it. Do I look at it as Trump doing illegal activity? Absolutely. I think he's done a lot of things that have been far more illegal that he hasn't gotten hit for, but you can't really get into that so much. So just going on what the facts are in the case, I just have to go with what the case is, and this guy is definitely guilty. And do we need any other lawyers here to kind of break this down? I don't know what else to say, but I'm just gonna stick close to that. Go ahead.
This to me seems more like, especially with one of the last points that you just made, he's likely done a lot worse things that he didn't get caught on.
I think that's clearly evident. I mean, when we start to look at January 6th and a lot of other things, certainly with Trump University and a lot. Come on, I mean, this is deep. So that's not relevant to what this exact case is right now, though.
Yeah, that's true. But my point was going to be, it's kind of like an R. Kelly scenario where what it was that they got him on. But actually, many folks think it's just totally bogus. But almost no one disputes that the stuff that he got away with is stuff that he shouldn't have gotten away with. The stuff that in the related to some of these underage girls. So anyhow, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And what you guys are kind of talking about here, generally speaking, has a history with, let's say, what we RICO cases, or what I think when we had a similar conversation in this very case closed, I think I talked about the known bad guy approach to, because these criminal justice agencies are not computers; these are people, right? And the tools by which they get you are not particularly important to them, especially if you're quote unquote a known bad guy, right? So you're a known bad guy, and it could be, you could say this falls under for political reasons, maybe that you decided to prosecute Al Capone versus the other gangster that pays you or whatever. Yeah, you could argue all that kind of stuff. But if you're an Al Capone or a known bad guy of this sort, or an R. Kelly or whatever, it doesn't really matter how they get you, right? You don't get to say, oh. So it is generally known, even though it's not stated, that these tools that they're using are just human machinations, if you will. We're just little chimps here trying to take down a bad guy, right? But Kaizo, your thoughts about the worthwhileness of bringing this and the whole general seriousness of stuff of this, and vis-a-vis also the whole known bad guy approach, right?
Oh, I just want to say one thing very quickly, and very quickly. His attorney, Michael Cohen, went to jail, went to prison.
Do you think he should have gone to? Do you think he should have gotten that much for this thing?
Well, according to the law, that's what they said. So whether I think or whatever else is relatively immaterial. It's what the law was. So
they can choose, and you can have opinions about things.
I mean, hey, listen, hey, listen. I agree with you, but I mean, I agree with you. Did he have to go, and did he have to get locked up? I think some of that was real crazy. I think he took the heat for Trump, and hey, listen, he went down for it. So your attorney goes down, but you're clean. You have to take a look at that from either side. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'll just leave it there.
I like it. I like it. Thank you. Thank you for shedding more light on as to your some opinions there, right? Well, Kaizo, can you hear me? Probably you can. I
Yes, affirmative.
assume. Yeah. So the question here is about what general comments about the seriousness of the crime, the worthwhileness of the prosecution, and whatnot, right? We generally know the fact pattern here. Even if you have, no matter how deep even if you were just listening to only this conversation, right, we get the fact pattern generally speaking. What are your thoughts about it, seriousness wise, worthwhileness of prosecution wise?
Okay, so seriousness wise, I think we'll know if he actually gets any jail time. The spirit right now is he probably won't, but we really don't know. America is becoming a bit crazy and sort of becoming Ouroboros, right? It's going to eat itself out. So yeah, seriousness, I actually don't know. I think we'll have to wait if he actually gets jail term for this, right? Because again, if you're going to claim if you're going to claim that he's guilty on 34 charges, then you need to give some kind of punishment. Either he's going to get jail time or money. He has to pay back some kind of money because again, it's a corruption sort of case, hush money sort of thing going on. So most likely, we're going to see some kind of fines. However, regarding sort of, I want to kind of respond to Nagoni a little bit, right? I think Nagoni focused a lot on the law, but I didn't really hear the spirit of what your argument is, right? Because sure, I mean, the law is so convoluted that you can bring up charges on anyone on anything actually at this point. So yeah, on that hand, sure, he was guilty of whatever it is that they brought against him, but whether they should have brought it up against him, that's the question. Also the timing. I mean, we all know this is political, right? Whether he's guilty or not, that's a whole separate sort of conversation. It's very political. The guy was, they don't want him to win for whatever reason, right? In terms of like having peers and the jury and all that stuff is still kind of irrelevant. If they want him to lose, he's gonna lose. This is clearly some kind of deep state stuff going on. Again, I don't really care much for Trump, right? Or it's not that I'm protecting
This
him, right?
case was brought against him. This case was brought against him while literally, but while Trump was in office. So this is something this is not a new case. This is something that's been going on for a while. Like I said, his attorney has already done time and been out for a couple of years. I mean, you have to look at how all this thing kind of is coming down. So I'm just going to leave it. Maybe you're not aware of that,
but in the spirit of looking at how it's all coming down, it does seem a little suspect that in all of the years that Biden has been in office, it took this long right before the election for for this to finally transpire. So that's the part that seems political.
Well, hold on a second.
The charges may be
they postponed it.
One second.
This is the thing. They postponed
One second.
While he was in office, they postponed it.
Yeah. So anyway. Well, hold up. The charges may be legitimate, but the timing is what makes it seem political. And there's a October surprise, right? That's a regular thing that happens, and there's always stuff that happens in October. Now this is before October, I know, but there's always stuff that happens in October, and you would be wise to look at whatever happens in October and understand that this is stuff that has been in the works and already known for a long time, and they just chose to deploy it in October because it's politically motivated. And so I think that's why
man. There's a process to how things work, and you're not.
I understand that there's a process,
and you're not following that. So I'm not going to really get more into that. There's a process to things. This case has been going on for a few years now. It's a process to how this works. So we'll just leave it at that, and that's it. You go ahead. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that we can agree that what it is that he's convicted of, we can say he's clearly guilty of that. It's just the timing of when this is coming out that makes it seem politically motivated. That's the point I'm making. If it is or not is beside the point. That's what it makes it seem politically motivated. That's my point.
Okay. Well, it is what it is.
Haram Dua in the chat. Indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about $130,000 hush money. It's not even that much money. But Trump did it back then while he was in a little bit of trouble. The video from Access Hollywood came out. You know, the famous grab him by the vulva stuff. That video. And by paying Stormy Daniels that, he was interfering with the election. So goes the verdict. So this payment and hiding financially what it is, in other words, falsifying of documentation, which is a big deal in the Southern District of New York, as Dagon pointed out to, because New York is the financial capital of the world. They don't like when you mess around with your books, even though, all these people in real estate, including Trump, constantly are messing around with their books, generally speaking, right? But these are the guys that got Sam Bankman-Fried as well. You don't mess with the Southern District of New York. When they come for you, they're coming for you pretty hard and whatnot, right? But LAR, you already gave your ideas as to why Trump is white and he will be free and white again. But maybe you can reiterate your points there about the seriousness of what he has done here, the worthwhileness, the seeming political whatever. We're now in that space of speculation, right? It's not about the facts of the case or the law. Go ahead, LAR.
So a president got caught up in now what is the biggest Me Too case of all time. Me Too hit the White House. Ultimately, you could say it's a setup if you want to. You could say the timing is bad. You can say all of those things. But since we're about personal responsibility, you could also say, stop being stupid. You 177 years old. Like, I could say Hunter Biden is stupid, but I can't say he the president. But you could say Donald Trump is stupid and he the president. So, did people have an issue? Like, I look back in time and say, okay, when Bill Cosby went to jail and people had no issue with the guy running for was it judge, attorney general or whatever, and he said he was gonna put him in jail. People had no issue with that. There were news stories all over the place, like, oh, guilty. Okay, fine. People had no issue with a bunch of other instances where people look like people got railroaded. But now all of a sudden, I'm supposed to have this great heart because the old white guy got convicted. Oh, the old white guy who's done a lot of dirt over the years got convicted. Oh my God. It's like, so what? Just like, all these other people, are people going to stop voting for him because of this? No. Knowing Trump, he could win presidency and then say, you know what, I'm banning all porn platforms because I'm sick, just because of Stormy Daniels. So it's like, what are we actually, my question is, what are we actually concerned about? Because if you want to put it logically, you can say that, okay, I need to be wary of a guy who used campaign funds to pay off people, because if he becomes president, what kind of funds would he use to pay off people? Even though we already know that's rampant in society, that's supposed to be quote unquote deep state type of stuff, but don't put it on Front Street. So now it's like, who, I who was it? Not you, Ike. Kaizo said America is going crazy. No, this is normal behavior. This is my issue with this whole thing. This is normal American behavior. But we act like it's not, once again, because all these people white. Do you realize I've seen more outrage when when they said Barry Bonds was on steroids? This is just pathetic drama that he's still going to be the president with.
And there you have it, folks. And there you have it. Now, Dr. Thunder, we're going to move to the next one, but did you want to opine on this Trump, the last piece here on Trump? We're already 1 hour deep, okay? We're 1 hour deep, and ladies and gentlemen, again, just to set us up as to where we are at, level set, if you will, we're talking about Donald Trump being convicted. He is now a felon, right? We're talking about becoming the first former American president to be convicted of felony crimes. On Thursday in New York, jury found him guilty of all 34 charges in a scheme to illegally influence the 2016 election through a hush money payment to a porn star, right? And again, it was one misdemeanor in service of another misdemeanor. The one misdemeanor. Go ahead.
So a couple things that I will say. Yes, 34 counts, but it might as well just be one count because it's the same crime. It's just done multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
I think it may have been worse if he was found innocent. This is what I mean. I'm talking about worse for the left. It may have been worse because I think that they would have become so distracted by that and appeared to be so sort of unhinged and emotional about that it may have done more damage. I think, as I said before, I think the guilty verdict, especially since even a presidential candidate that's incarcerated can run and could win, it's a non-issue. This is a non-issue. And
Go
ahead.
And maybe you spoke on this before when you were talking about the people whom have decided versus people whom have not decided. But I don't know if you want to speak again on, or maybe reiterate that point about why you think it's not going to affect people's decision to vote. Yeah, because yes, he can still be elected. It does not affect his ability to run and be on the ballot. But
the people that really dig him basically dig him because they see him as someone that, in a matter of speaking, doesn't play by a certain set of rules. Right. So all this does is double down on that he doesn't play by a certain set of rules. Okay. Now, if this was murder charge, if this was something, espionage, if this was something, on a different sort of scale, then, I think that it would have been a different issue. But paying off your side chick, they're kind of like, well, I don't want him around my kids. I don't think his value system is conducive to, maybe the kind of family structure that I'm trying to develop or the kind of values I want my kids to have. But he ain't going to be around my kids. so you can be a dirty bastard. Maybe we need a dirty bastard in there. So I don't know. So, and then of course the people that were against him, they're going to be against him anyway. I don't think it really matters what he does. They're going to be against him. So, and then the people that are in the middle aren't really undecided in that sense. I don't think this alone will sway them. So like I said, I think it's still a big zero.
There you go, big zero. So the House has been having, a subcommittee in the House has been having hearings on COVID. Okay. Well, Something just came to my mind tangentially. Has anybody, heard of the Terrence Howard recent thing where he went on Joe Rogan and now everyone is questioning mathematics? Did you hear about that,
Oh yeah,
LAR?
this is so silly.
Yeah. The 1 plus 1 may not equal 2, may equal something else. I mean,
Yeah, 1 times 1 is not 1. 1 times 1 is 2 because if you think about it.
You know what? The thing is, he's not wrong. It's just he's misapplying the system, right? Like if you multiply a dollar to a dollar, you're not going to get $1. However, it's a units problem and
It's a
a
units
system
problem. You don't multiply objects by objects. $1 is not
Right.
1. Right. So basically, and again, what Kaizo is highlighting here is that typically we do not teach the intuitions behind the sciences, including mathematics, right? We don't teach people about mathematical space, right? Someone might be listening and be like, what the fuck do you mean by mathematical space? Exactly. Okay. Because you just talked about algebra and silly rules, but these rules operate within a space. This space has an intuitive conceptual form to it. And what Terrence Howard is doing, by the way, is going into, let's say he goes behind the periodic table, which is a set of kind of just rules and whatnot, and you go to the space within which the periodic table exists, and you can talk about things such as spirals and whatnot, and different frequencies and whatnot, right? But Terrence is not being tidy. He's just going out. He opened up this intuitive space, which people are unfortunately not taught about, and he's just messing things up over there, right? He's not being, correct per se. But this kind of ties into that because it's about experts, okay? Experts and the trust of experts, which was greatly undermined, I think, during COVID, amongst other times as well. But also it's apropos to the Terrence Howard situation as well, because people are like, yeah, and obviously you have the ready, Alex Jones crowd that are always ready and willing to come out and say whatever the man told you is BS, man, and it's all in your mind. But even Terrence Howard is not crazy enough to think the earth is flat. We can at least be thankful for that aspect. But the house has been having, as I was mentioning earlier, before I sidetracked myself. Or I don't know, Kaizo, did you want to land the plane about your point about Terrence Howard? Because again, it is kind of key to what we're about to get into. Go ahead.
What I find interesting is, as you mentioned, right, he's kind of opening up an intuitive space about how to sort of think about the science and mathematics, right? However, as I mentioned, right, his intuition isn't wrong. It's just not tidy. It's not clean, right? He has a point. However, his point is defunct because there's nothing else to it than just a point. Think of it like a random floating island on the planet, right? It's not attached to anything else. So that's the main issue that I have with him. And I think all these sort of new age people are like, yeah, he's right. They're trying to lie to us. Conspiracy theorists are coming out here from all their woodworks, thinking that science is filled with a lot of this. And here's the thing, though. I think also there's an element in science, right, which actually supports this claim, right? As I said, right, we're moving on to the cover up on COVID-19. When you have the whole world telling you one thing, when you know something else based on, again, science as well, contradicting each other, you kind of have to question these things, right? And these systems. You look at the whole food and health sort of
the food pyramid and all that crap. And by the way, the some particular economics kind of society and whatnot, headed by people from Harvard and whatnot, lying about what the CPI was back in the 80s and or lying about what the CPI means and whatnot, trying to fix certain things. But anyways, go ahead.
Exactly. You can see all that is just sponsored by specific people who sponsor these research. So it kind of creates some kind of public, a public distrust in these institutions and these, again, science sort of programs. So I get it, right? People are kind of saying, oh, he's right. Maybe there's a conspiracy theory against, a conspiracy against knowledge over there. But again, he's just kind of laying out basic intuitions. But if you're going to be a scientist, you need to create something, right? If he wants to be a shaman, talking things spiritually, he can go down that path, right? But when it comes to science, the scientific method helps us predict things. And the only problem with this all intuitions is there's no real predictions from it, right? Meaning it's not you. Yeah. That's the issue.
Yes.
You have no predictions and you have no proofs. you there's no way to, you have no proofs for it as well. So
Even if you had proofs, right? Like if you look at string theory, it's still useless if there's no prediction. But yeah, that's a
the
good point.
proofs are just mathematical
Yeah.
forms, yes, but you don't have experimental prediction, blah blah blah. And go ahead, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah, so this is interesting because his assessment that 1 times 0, calling it 0 somehow breaks some principle of physics, because energy is neither created nor lost, right? So if that's the case, then now you have to account for this 1 that was there. This kind of talking, yeah, it's not math that he's talking about. He's talking about some other principle.
Yeah,
but it's not making it, but it's not clear based on the way that
Yeah.
he describes it.
There's actually an easy way to sort of cook this guy. You can. I don't like using this way just because it's a cop out, but you can just say when it comes to multiplications and stuff, it's 1 is an object. It's an object. It occurs 0 times, right? So 1 times 1 is 1 is an object that occurs 1 time. 1 times 0 is an object 1 that occurs 0 times. That kind of just removes this whole kind of
Exactly.
confusion.
And the other thing I was going to say is there's a way of thinking of this that is not exactly the same thing, but I've heard music theorists describe that there are 17 keys. 17 keys, 17 major keys, right? So in the Western form, there's 12 notes. So how is it possible that there are 17 keys? But it's a trick. The trick is that on the piano, the black keys on the piano all have 2 different names, right? So you've got B flat and A sharp, A flat and G sharp, F sharp and G flat, E flat and D sharp, C sharp and D flat. So if you count those as separate keys, then you have 17 keys. Right? So but it's like a distinction without a difference. It's like, why call those separate keys? Because when you hear them, they sound the same. But technically, there are 17 keys. So it's like trying to describe that to someone that doesn't understand that principle. It seems like magic, but it's just silly.
Sorry, it seems like I heard somebody was about to say something, but let me go ahead and play a little bit of this here. Okay, we're talking about House COVID-19 investigative subcommittee, right? And it will seem as though there are people whom trying to, shall we say, railroad FOIA proceedings. FOIA being, freedom of information, right, to go out there and investigate what actually happened. What's the deal with the lab leak thing? What's the deal with this gain of function research? Are all these things tied? Why were things being hidden in a particular way? And it seems like as they peek in, they're seeing that, yes, these guys really muddied up the waters when they were trying to cover their tracks. We know that, and it's just common sense. Yes, they were hiding things and saying ridiculous stuff, right? And it took Jon Stewart, for example, to kind of make it kind of blatantly clear that, hey, come on, like this is all kind of crazy. But while they were covering their tracks, we also do some kind of crazy stuff as well. Let me go ahead and play a little bit of this. We'll come around.
Of text and other messages from his cell phone to you and me because he has been using a government phone. This came from Tony, end quote. Sir, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding using personal phone or email to communicate with Dr. Daszak?
I don't remember it. It's possible. I probably wouldn't have remembered it, and I don't remember it.
On January 18th, you testified that you did not have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth. On October 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, Peter, from Tony's numerous recent comments to me, they're trying to protect you, end quote. You meaning EcoHealth and Dr. Daszak. Dr. Brenz, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth?
Well, the ones you just mentioned, I don't have any recollection of that.
No recollection?
No recollection, no.
All right, so we're on the no recollection train, and then I'll give this final clip here. This is unbelievable, Sachs. Currently, there's a FOIA lady, Freedom of Information Act lady, working at NIH to train and help and mentor people on how to avoid having their communications. These are people who work for us, and she's the FOIA lady at NIH, Play the clip, Nick.
And as you've said, you previously testified that you did not delete any federal records. But on February 24th, 2021, you wrote, quote, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I'm FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail, end quote. And the next day on February 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, but I learned the tricks last year from an old friend, Marge Moore, who heads our FOIA office and also hates FOIAs, end quote. Yes or no? Is Marge Moore the FOIA lady you were referring to?
She was at the time. I believe she's retired since then.
Did the NIH FOIA office instruct you on how to delete emails or avoid FOIA?
No.
All right, Sex. There's your red meat. Smoking guns everywhere. What do you think?
Please give me a couple of minutes to kind of lay out what happened here. Okay, so Fauci knew very early as February 1st of 2020, that COVID came from a lab leak. The scientists said so. All they had to do was look under a microscope and see the furin cleavage site, which is not naturally occurring. It's something that was added, basically bioengineered to the virus in order to make it more transmissible in humans. So they knew right away that this somehow came from a lab leak. And Fauci and Collins said in emails that they were going to begin a brutal takedown in order to conceal this fundamental truth of the lab leak from the public. Now, why would Fauci need to conceal this? Because he had funded gain-of-function research programs via Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance to conduct, again, gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Moreover, Fauci was personally responsible for reversing an Obama-era decision to prohibit gain-of-function research because it was so risky. Fauci wrote op-eds justifying gain-of-function research. He wrote a paper in 2012, which was actually...
Okay, let's pause there a little bit. Nagone, are you still there? I want to ask you something here about this gain-of-function research. Okay, we've had the Spanish flu and the Black Plague. We had SARS. It makes a lot of sense, and indeed, governments, including that of the United States, perhaps at the forefront, do spend a lot of money in terms of research and how we would deal with pandemics and things of that nature. Gain of function, how would you treat that in general, right? You know, would you go into, because there is a Steelman case, there is a case for gain of function, like, hey, let me see what would happen if this thing went berserk, right? And see how I could deal with it. Because if it goes berserk one day on its own through its typical revolutionary process, I want to be at least ready. What are your thoughts about this gain of function approach?
I think it's an approach that at some level, is sensible. You have to take a look and see how this thing would react. Really, when I really start to look at a lot of this, because when we start to look at cover-ups and exactly, how this thing really evolved, or when we really start looking at really what was going on from the Wuhan Institute and all that, I have to be very frank with you. It's so much stuff flying around. It's kind of difficult to really make some real sense out of this. Was there really a cover up here? Or was there a lack of knowledge where people didn't fully know absolutely all of what they were dealing with? Because some said it looked like it was manufactured. Others said it looked like it was, kind of naturally occurring and evolving. Wow. I just think the biggest problem we really have here, I'm not trying to skirt the question, but I think the biggest problem we really had here was really, we knew we did have somewhat of an outbreak. We did have an office of the pandemics that was eliminated. So when the last administration was in there, they had no way of really dealing with that. And this problem became really huge and a lot of people died. Was this manufactured and so forth? I have to be very honest. I've been looking at so much stuff. It's really hard to say. And I can't really say. I just think that how we handled a pandemic out of this was the most telling thing about this whole issue. How we didn't handle this thing properly and how we let this thing really get out of hand in such a way. It did a lot of damage where other countries, other nations that, let's say, were not as big and as wealthy as we were, did a far, far, far better job in its containment. So I don't know. That's about the best I can really say on this.
Yeah, no problem. That's good. And
go ahead.
One thing that you said, right, about did they know, did they not know, what did they do, what not they do? Let me make one particular point there within that field. And the point is, public health is not science, right? public health is not science. It is engineering, and a very low level engineering with some basic axioms regarding what you tell people, right? Such as if you're going to tell people about wash your hands every day, you got to make it simple. It's got to be repeatable. You know, you can't start getting into the science of whether or not blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. That science stuff is a separate thing. When they start using the authority of science, I'm talking about one of the ways in which they messed up the water. Typically, there's the fog of war. You don't know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But then when you take the authority of science and start saying, no, it's science, as opposed to, no, it's just public health, right? Which is a very different thing. As I said, low level, simple axiomatic engineering, very far away from science, right? But anyways, Kaizo, go
I
ahead.
just think we could have done a far better job. My own mother passed from that. So, you know, I'm looking at that, and we can get into all different aspects of this, of which people are not really scientists. I've studied some of this myself. I looked at it, and you know, we can go over this 1,001 different ways, but I think at the end of the day, it had to come down to public health, public safety, and us really laying out a really good stratagem for how we would handle this. Like when I looked at South Korea and their brilliant program about how they handle that, and how they had that whole thing set up to really reduce the amount of sicknesses that people had, and some of the African countries that nobody talks about, how they had very low levels and how they went about dealing with this virus there as well. You know, we're talking a lot here. We've got a lot of problems here, but we had close to 1 million people die here, which is unbelievable, unacceptable, and that was done on the last administration. And quite frankly, I think that was absolutely that was criminal in itself. But anyway, I'm just going to leave it at that. Anyway.
So Kaizo, gain of function research, right? We've talked about this before, and we've gone in the ins and outs of the virus, the vaccine, whatnot. You're a man of science and a man of culture. Now, gain of function research. What do you think is your response if you are, the czar of the science of the research here? Would you do it? And if you were to mess up, how would you handle the mess up, right? Would you start doing all this crazy stuff like telling people that it's science or something like that? Or does that even matter? Either way, what is your assessment of it? What are your thoughts about gain of function research? Would you implement it? If things went wrong, how would you handle it?
Yeah, so I mean, okay. Here's the thing, right? When it comes to research, and I kind of find interesting, and I'm going to go around the long way. Some countries it's illegal to do certain researches, right? America, you can't really do human cloning; it's not allowed. Some countries it is, right? Especially the countries that aren't part of the whole, Eurodollar SWIFT system. So the argument here is this, right? If you don't do it, someone else is doing it, and if someone else does it before you, then they have something that you don't have. So this is just from a security sort of defense perspective. Then there's also the knowledge aspect. Yeah, you're always going to get more knowledge if you research into things. The issue is obviously this has to be curtailed by safety measures. Now, with this whole situation here, with the whole cough virus, right, was actually the fact that mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. There's also, of course, the whole cover-up thing. People lying. There's text messages all over the place. World Health Organization kind of acting out as this conduit for misinformation. Then, of course, even YouTube got involved. Facebook got involved. All these groups of people were actually. What was interesting is actually in some kind of deposition, YouTube was being asked, why were you silencing actual doctors or people with medical training and knowledge, right? These are just random people who YouTube employs to look at, if things goes against some kind of, policy that they've created. They've got no information about medicine. These are not even learned polymaths online, right? These are just random normies silencing actual doctors because they have to follow a prescribed, pun intended, right, information. So I think the issue is I would have handled it differently, right? Being truthful and being honest and just be like, yeah, we messed up. This is what happened. It is what it is. Let's deal with it.
Let's get it.
Actually quite candid about the risks of gain of function. He
Hey,
describes the kind of
real quick,
liability that could occur.
Go ahead.
here. So, see, the issue is government can never apologize. That's a basic principle of governing. You can never apologize. And in this situation, what you had was folks that were behaving as if they had enough information to give authoritative, like, this is what it is, this is what it's going to be. And when they were found to be wrong, they silenced all the people that were asking questions. And anything that the government tells you to do, it might as well be them pointing a gun right at you. So anything that they tell you to do is at gunpoint. And if they're wrong, that means that they were pointing a gun at you and they were wrong while they were doing it. So they must double down. And that's what they did. They continued to double down even when, and to deny, even when it was clearly shown that what it was that they were saying was wrong, was incorrect. I actually had a video blocked. I think it was a case closed that was blocked on my channel. And we weren't saying anything in particular. We were just having a conversation. We were just asking questions. So yeah, they got real assertive with that blocking stuff. I had Larry Sharp on a couple times on my channel. And one thing and we talked about this whole deal, and one of his points was, it would have been much better if they said, look, this is what it is that we think that you should do. Here's what the government thinks that you should do in this situation. Here are the options. Here's other people, what they're saying. Here's more information. We're going to trust you. We're going to trust you to do what's best for you. Right? That's not what they did. They said, you're going to do this. They were wrong. They were shown to be wrong. They doubled and tripled down on being wrong because the government can never apologize. So it was sort of it's unfortunate the way it went down. I like the way that the Scandinavian countries sort of situated this. They didn't treat everyone like one size fits all.
Yes, indeed. Not one size fits all, and not all nations are the same with regards to demographics, which is an important aspect here because the mortality rate varies greatly depending on the demographic category. And Africa was and is quite young. Was and is still young. Hence, not a lot of dead Africans over this stuff. So LAR.
I think
hold on.
you
Okay, go
were
ahead.
present when you were present actually when we sort of abstracted this whole thing, right? Me, you, and a couple of people. We talked about everything. We had enough data even before we had the data, right? But once we had the data, we talked about it. We literally looked at the tables of what affects this disease, and I think the fact that they kind of forced it to be something else was also another issue on this whole cover up, right? They wanted it to be something else. Once it happened, and I think the governments were definitely using this thing to kind of figure out, draconian measures to control populations. I'll give you an example, right? In Kenya, actually Africa in general, didn't really have this disease affecting many people. However, they shut down businesses, put curfews, right? For some reason, they think at night the disease travels faster or something, right? They set up curfews, stop businesses from operating, and killed a lot of people from other diseases like dysentery, cholera, malaria, normal flu. All the other stuff that kills people increased because of hysteria over something that in Africa, again, based on the fact that niggas here is young, right, and not sick, because the sick ones are dead, right? So, anyways, I just want to add that in there.
Okay. And again, the question generally on the table, which has morphed though, but on the table is about, what you would do gain of function research wise, and how you would act if the cat got out of the bag or whatever, something went wrong. How do you deal with it? I mentioned something about public health not being science. And if you start mixing the two because you're trying to use the authority of science or something like that, you're going to end up, shooting yourself in the foot, right? Because it's going to backlash at you because people are going to come with the science and they're going to say, what the hell were you saying? Why did blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, and this is what I want to ask LAR now, is people are stupid. And LAR can, this is LAR's line, right? People are stupid. How are you going to tell people what they need to do with regards to public health, and that kind of policy? It's easy for people to judge and say, okay, well, you guys did this wrong, you guys did that wrong. And while I do 100% agree that when you do get it wrong, you come out and you simply state it. And upfront, I would not make the mistake of treating something which is a question of public health policy and best practices and simple instructions as though it were science. But anyways, now I'm droning on and on and on. LAR, how do you inform the American people about could this have gone better? Could we have been Sweden? LAR?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, like, I mean, you say it all the time. People are stupid. They say it's the Wuhan virus. They blame it on China, and everybody, and at some point, oh, it's China's fault. It's China's fault. And what do? You go on Amazon and you order 50, 11 things from China, and then blame China. When people say stay in the house so this doesn't spread, what do you have? You have people, man, you can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna go anywhere and do anything at any time with anybody. Nobody can tell me what to do. Okay, cool. So it spread. And I was one of the people. If it's the flu, the common sense tell you, man, it's like telling the United States, hey, man, the flu's spreading, chill out for a while. And you say, I'm going to Texas, I'm going to Florida, I'm getting on every plane, I'm gonna go to every restaurant. You remember people were just coughing on stuff just because. People were licking on fruits and vegetables just because. This becomes an issue in America where people in America feel like we have the freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, and it doesn't matter who it affects because what we want is the most important thing. And usually one of the things that we want is to just defy somebody, So it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like I know of people who died because their family members got it. But we gonna have a family get together, and I'm not telling nobody because we as a family want to go out. And then other people in the family die. And they go, oh, well, you know what I'm saying? We knew, but we didn't think it was that serious. So now the funeral's over, my bad. So that's the issue with the American mentality, and you saw it the whole time. You saw people playing the game of there's no nice way to say this. You saw people knowingly getting sick and seeing other people get sick and then play the game of it ain't gonna happen to me, and then wind up in the hospital, and then people go, they need to do everything to save them, and people are dying left and right in the hospital. And it's like, yo, what are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Like, first and foremost, America hasn't been good with any kind of. Was America good in 9/11? No. Was America good when with Katrina? No. Was America good in that? No. Was America good? What was that? Forest fires? No. Floods? No. Earthquakes? No. We just, it's like, okay, stuff happened and people think it's going to happen. We're going to fix stuff overnight and it doesn't happen. So people just want to do what they want to do. And other countries had the common sense to say, let us chill out for a minute. That's all. American arrogance is why the situation got worse.
I think your point is good, but I think the real point comes down to leadership. When you look at the other countries that had great responses, they had great leadership. They had a great leadership, central office being run from the top straight on down, and everyone followed behind that. And since everybody was on the same page, you had everything delivered like clockwork, and people had great responses from there. Great responses.
I think you're absolutely right.
And that was the problem. Had Obama been president, had we had where you could do a third term with the office of the pandemics, okay, and what Obama had faced first through what was that flesh-eating virus that they had going out that was going out for a period of time, and they were able to stop that pretty quickly here. I'm forgetting the name of the
you talking about the
swine
Ebola?
Ebola, yes. That Ebola situation. They had a test with that. So what that was, and that's when they formulated that whole office. So you would have had a very quick universal response from the leadership, and it would have been down to the National Institutes of Health and everyone else like that. Everything would have got out. There wouldn't have been no cross going or whatever. And then that's how it was. You brought this other individual in who came in. I'm not trying to get all political, but you had a crisis of leadership where all of a sudden he threw it on everybody else to take care of it. And then you had these states with some of these governors were retarded and so forth, not very intelligent people. And, you had this thing running all over the place. And you had a response that was, it was unbelievable. It was just unbelievably incompetent. And that's how it was. When you look at countries like North Korea, when you look at other countries, like the Netherlands and some of the other places that had very, very, very small numbers of outbreak compared to their population. Korea, what did they have? South Korea, how many people did they have die from that? You had less than 5,000 people, I think, who died from that, and just in Seoul alone, you got 10 million people in that city. Okay, and how were they able to keep that from spreading and tearing everyone out the frame? How were they able to do that? They had a very critical response, and it was central, and it went right down the line, and that was the leadership in that country.
That's the difference.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a. But I don't. I agree with you.
But I remember you, Dr. Thunder, saying, "Hey, this is ridiculous. People don't need to take shots, and people don't need to do all this." I was appalled at what I was hearing.
I didn't say that
at that stage. But I'm just saying.
So hold up.
I've heard people say all kind of crazy things, and why I say that was because we did not have a good response. We had people talking cross purposes for political reasons, economic reasons, and so forth. And this thing got all screwed up. Now, I'm not getting on you, Dr. Thunder. So I don't want to. I'm going to have to, back off on that a bit.
Yeah. Well, so let me just respond. Let me just respond really quick. That is not what I said. My issue.
I heard it.
My issue is with anyone else telling you what you have to do with your body.
There you go.
That was the issue.
Hold on.
Well, we're talking about public self.
Wait. That was the point that I was trying to make, and why I agree with Nagone about leadership. That's a normal thing in American politics, period. Especially globally. You can't tell me what to do. That goes from the top down. America looks at the world and says, the world, you can't tell me what to do. We're going to do it the way we want to do it. And then that goes down to the people. A lot of these other countries y'all talking about, the people in that country know if we don't follow instructions, something might happen.
Okay, so let me.
You guys are always ignoring that Americans are fat. That's the reason why they died and the Europeans didn't.
Yeah. So just let me respond. Let me say what I was trying to say. So so my issue is about anyone else telling me what I have to do, right? In creating incentives and basically crushing individuals that are not within risk categories. See, one of the
it doesn't make sense what you're saying.
No, stop. One of the reasons why the Scandinavian countries, why it worked out better for them, is because they didn't treat everyone as one size fits all. Everybody has to do the same thing. That's not what they did. So that's why that was part of the reason why that worked out better.
That's not who
Stop
he did. That's not who
talking.
did.
I didn't talk when you were talking.
No, I'm just saying some of the things you're saying. I'm not following what you mean. I'm just saying, please clear up what you mean. I'm a little lost on some points. Go ahead.
Okay, so the second thing that I was saying is I don't think that it was an issue of leadership per se. I don't know that you could put a different leader in place and really get a different result.
What?
I think no matter who the leader was, the way that American society is situated, you're going to have that same sort of dysfunctional circumstance. And when you cite other countries, the primary reason why in other countries why they had a different result is because individuals don't have the same rights. So when something comes down,
total bullcrap. That's ridiculous. What you're saying right there is
who cited? Was it you that cited North Korea?
No, I didn't say North Korea. I said South Korea. South Korea.
Somebody cited North Korea.
No. South Korea. I said South Korea. South Korea, which is a democratic republic. Okay, yeah. South Korea. We're not talking about China and so forth. South Korea. We're looking at countries like the Netherlands. Okay, we're looking at countries like Rwanda. Okay, and a lot of other places, African countries that did very well underneath those circumstances. Okay, that nobody talks about, that people are quiet about. Their leadership.
Okay, hold 1 second. We gotta move the ball a little bit forward, and I want to
Okay.
Yeah, I want to move it by going to Kaizo here a little bit. First of all, Kaizo dropping some facts in the chat regarding the multivariant aspect of this. Just like when I was talking about the Trump thing, the facts of the matters of fact and fact patterns, and then there's matters of the law and such, and those things are out there, and one doesn't argue about that kind of stuff. Well, but being, kind of a scientifically minded person, they're just, I see these equations and all these multiple different facts, and there are many ways to go and have little street fights in corners of these equations without looking at the full equation. If what I said makes sense to anybody, let them take it. However, Kaizo, let's get back to this aspect of public policy, right? Many aspects of have been added to the table vis-a-vis individual rights versus non-individual rights. You could talk about looking at groups demographic wise and such in terms of risks and whatnot, and patterning your response in accordance with that. But also you can reiterate the point about gain of function research, right? Your thoughts on that and such. Go ahead again, Kaiser.
Yeah, so okay, if we're going to go down the orthodox way of public health responses, when it comes to things like this, right, virology, right, viruses can mutate. So what that means is, even if you created some kind of shot, like some kind of flu shot, it's not going to be viable the next time around because they mutate. That's why they're not that effective. They're going to help out this, the demographic that they're going to help out, right, every season. However, you can't really create a permanent solution to it. That's just how virology works. Now, when it comes to this whole situation, everybody, if you look again, just very basic.
Again, just a little bit of guidance here. You're being more descriptive again. I'm asking you to be a czar of a particular blah blah blah. I want you to speak declaratively. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So if I was a czar of a specific country, right? What I would have done is I would have created a multi solution event, right? What that means is you look at the data, which data is actually showing the most vulnerable people of this disease, and then I'll sort of curate it that way. An example is this, right? If you're young, you show no signs from the reported demographics of being at risk, I'll say, I give you a choice. I'll say, okay, if you want to go back to work, do whatever it is you want, that's fine. Especially if you're not living with people that you can sort of, harm. If you are old and or fat, right? And by fat, I just mean if you have any underlying health issues, then I will stop you from actually from harming yourself. So I would remove some kind of agency if you clearly meet, if you fall under the, at very high risk sort of situation. So I just got create a multivariate sort of solution to keep the economy going, give people freedom who are not really at risk, and just do it that way, right? Science, information-based sort of solution over there, right? I definitely would actually protect the people who are at risk, though. I'll prevent them from going outside.
Can I add something to that, which was actually part of the problem? When you say people who are not at risk, that means that they won't, say, pass away from this type of stuff. They have the immune system to beat it. The problem was those people have to go around their family when their family don't have the immune system to beat that type of stuff. So that was part of the issue with young people going back home, or for the holidays, or part of the people who are essential workers, right? They were around people that didn't have good immune systems, but they like, hey man, ain't nothing gonna happen to me, so I'm gonna just be out here willy-nilly. I'm good. And what winds up happening is that's how people wound up getting sick. Yeah, the obesity part, yeah, but more so the immune system part is the issue too. And if my kid's healthy, but I'm 60 years old and I need something to eat, and you want to do whatever you want to do and then bring me back some food, and then you pass that on to me, I'm stuck.
So we're gonna do this. This took longer than I thought. I thought we were gonna do a couple of topics. I just spend a little bit on Donald Trump. As usual, taking longer than I thought. I'm gonna play a little bit of this stuff, and then we're gonna start giving our closing thoughts. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the fact that your man, Donald Trump, is now current felon, ex-president. What did he gain? What did he lose? We laid out the electoral landscape. We talked about the different categories of voters. Have people really decided? Are they still open? Are they still going to be swayed one way or the other? And we talked about also the likelihood of his success in appeal, given certain grounds for appeal, right? Some of which, are yet to be. For example, I think the one about, the judge both contributing to the Democrats and also having some relative blah, blah, blah. It'll have to be kind of substantiated in the appeal process, that it had a material effect. And the appeal process is very kind of process driven, right? Don't go through these kind of deliberations of the fact patterns. It's more about, did some kind of was due process violated and whatnot, right? But we talked about all of that, and we went into this particular House subcommittee here on the COVID investigations. Now there's some wrangly stuff, some weird stuff going on there where people kind of railroading FOIA attempts and whatnot. Okay, now I'm going to play a little bit of this, just to let David Sachs kind of get his stuff off here, and then I think Dr. Thunder have you kind of comment more directly and direct answer to the question about public policy, health policy, and what to do and how to tailor these things, because it's easy to just say, hey, we could have been like this other place or like that other place, or you just tell people this or tell them that. Anyways, let's go ahead and see.
Via Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance to conduct, again, gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Moreover, Fauci was personally responsible for reversing an Obama-era decision to prohibit gain-of-function research because it was so risky. Fauci wrote op-eds.
And I remember when this whole thing went down with Obama, by the way, which shout out to Obama. And I believe that Nagone also kind of gave him credit here in terms of saying, hey, he would have been the one if you agree that a leader would have been the difference. But yes, Obama wasn't going for the gain of function stuff.
To prohibit gain of function research because it was so risky. Fauci wrote op-eds justifying gain of function research. He wrote a paper in 2012, which was actually quite candid about the risks of gain of function. He describes the kind of lab leak that could occur and the type of virus that could escape from a lab because of gain of function. But then he says that it's a risk worth taking. So this is somebody who funded the Wuhan lab. He funded gain of function research. He was personally responsible for lifting the ban on gain of function research. He had a lot of reasons to want to hide the fact that COVID was engineered in a lab and was lab leak. And so we know that even before this conspiracy to basically defraud the FOIA request, that Fauci had done things like organize that letter to the Lancet, which smeared and demonized scientists who were trying to tell the truth, saying that the so-called zoological theory was nonsense. This had to be from a lab. He was doing things like this. And now we have this added piece, which is this longtime colleague of Fauci and Collins at NIH, Dr. David Morenz, developed a strategy for evading FOIA requests that would expose the truth. He did this by deleting government emails, which is a crime, by using private email to conduct government business, which is also a crime, and then strategically misspelling names and titles to frustrate the FOIA searches. And then the craziest part is that Morenz foolishly detailed his schemes in emails that Fauci would have seen, that Fauci was on the distribution list of. So he has no plausible deniability.
It's literally like, they're like, here's how we can avoid getting caught.
Okay. Shout out to the $10 super chat here. Public health is not science. That's what I said. But again, the priority was to get this under control and not argue with people who didn't or would not wear masks and whatnot. So to that point, Dr. Thunder, talking about this public policy thing, which we've kind of been opining on, and I want you to now give you the opportunity to directly kind of answer to it. Gain of function research, would you do it? Would you not do it? If you did it and then things kind of messed up and something leaked out of your lab, how would you handle it? And also maybe, you can look with particulars as far as the coronavirus situation and say, well, here's how I would propose to do it. Because obviously the first thing you say with your philosophical quibble, people will say, well, there is no such thing as public health policy in the libertarian world because it's just let everybody do what they want. But is that what you're saying, Dr. Thunder? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have okayed my decision would have been the same as Obama's. A lot of that stuff is way too risky. Now Fauci had his reasons, whatever he thought the benefits would be, but yeah, but there's just a lot of stuff that's too risky to do
Yeah, but
in an
Dr.
open
Thunder,
society.
if you don't do it, right, other people will do it and they will have an upper edge over you and your society.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, there's just certain things that are just too risky. I mean, I guess you'd have to let somebody else be responsible then for letting something out or creating something that, does the kind of damage that COVID did. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, this is a tough, it's a sort of tough topic because, hindsight's 2020. Everybody can sort of look back and say, hey, I would have done it this way. I would have done it that way. And I do not envy the position of being in position to make a bunch of these decisions that had to be made.
I mean, we did see the countries that were having great responses. We knew what was going on. The numbers don't lie. The numbers were there. We knew what was going on, and we knew why these people were having.
I guess
better
I'm done
responses.
talking.
No. I'm just saying they were numbers that were there, my friend. They were numbers that were there. We can't deny that, and that's something that we're trying to do right now. Is look to say, oh, well, we should have done whatever. There was a lot of evidence as to what the truth was back then. We didn't follow it because here in this country there were
Yes.
many.
Yeah. Okay, Nagon.
No,
the thing is, though, all the
I'm
facts,
done.
including during the case, I've kind of been like laid down, and through my skillful hand of elucidating the points of each and every one, it's all on the table. I see every aspect already laid out in this very show. So there is no point in jumping when someone else is speaking.
Okay. I apologize. So sorry, doctor. I apologize.
So if you're done, Dr. Thunder, then
Yeah. So my point was, again, it's easy right now to look back and say, hey, we should have done this, we should have done that. And I've even participated in that. I think there's a bunch of stuff that we could have done a lot better. But the fact is that this country and the stuff that works here is not the same stuff that works in other places. And so even if you did have, as is being suggested, real-time numbers of things being successful in other places, you're still stuck with the different policy and the different culture and the different scenario that you have here. And so even when I mentioned the thing about the Scandinavian countries, that wouldn't have worked here either. I said that I liked that better. I liked the results of that. I liked that they didn't totally halt their economy, but I'd have to also admit that that wouldn't work here. So anyhow, that's all I have.
Okay. So with regards to anything on your mind, with regards to the topics that we discussed, right? Regards to something that you might have thought about when we were talking about Donald Trump and his chances and where the case might go and the appeals and whatnot. Just kind of give closing thoughts. I would like to start with you, Nagone, please, if you will. It's kind of like your final capstone on everything we've talked about and what else might be on your mind, sir.
Oh no, I think this is was actually a great conversation. To be quite frank with you, I know we get a little topped off in the end. And Dr. Thunder, I apologize about interrupting you about that. I'm sorry. So hopefully you take my apology seriously.
No worries, man. I understand.
And that's there. But great topic. I think there were some good stuff we talked about. I have to say, Ike, you really come up with some good stuff, and I really like these panels a great deal. And I'll just say this in closing. I think Donald Trump, if he does appeal this case, I think he might have a difficult time with that. But they may take this to the Supreme Court. I don't know if we'll see that, but he may take it there. But also, there's still Georgia you got to look out for. Georgia, where they have him on tape saying, "Get me 11,000 votes. I don't give a damn how you get it. Just get it." That's an issue as well. So we're gonna have to sit down and look at that too. So there's a lot of game zone left, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, really, thanks for inviting me up. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you very much. And Kaizo, okay, closing thoughts on everything and anything we were talking about, including the ball play that we kind of alluded to regarding the plastics in your testicles, which you helped us. But go ahead.
Yeah, my closing thoughts are never pay thoughts off. You might land yourself with a felony charge or two, right? Regarding the Bulls, look, guys, let's be realistic, right? What you are what you eat, right? So if you're out here eating plastic, I guess that's what's going to happen. You're going to get plastic sperm inside you. So change your dietary consumption.
Don't be
right?
eating BBLs and shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be out here eating silicones and all these other kind of stuff. Okay, jokes aside, right? If you are going to consume food, again, this is an advice from not someone who's a medically whatever. So just take it as something else. But eat from things that don't have plastic in it, right? Simple as that. And don't eat processed food. Eat real food. Go to the butcher, get real meat. Real vegetables from the garden, whatever it is. Eat real food. Don't eat processed stuff, and don't eat from plates or things that are plastic. That's really all I can say on that one, right? And regarding the COVID situation, I think this was a perfect example of how public health can become draconian. Measures set by the government, which people might not necessarily agree with, based on them actually gaining. Look, let's be realistic, right? This thing was allowed to happen because some people wanted to do research on a new type of vaccine that had never been utilized, across board, right? It was more of a genetic engineering vaccine as opposed to a typical using attenuated virus or whatever sort of pathogen that you have. So we have to kind of understand public health wise, this was an experiment on us. It is what it is.
Yes, indeed. Mitochondrial, talking about the DNA type of, shall we say, messing around with the information, messing around with the ghost in the shell, if you will, by messing around with that mitochondrial DNA. So, LAR, What are your closing thoughts? And then you'll take us out, Dr. Thunder.
Why, boy, why did y'all have to make so sorry, so many suspect references? Okay, anyway, Trump gonna be president regardless. People gonna still eat plastic. Some of these people think they're gonna create Plastic Man when they have sex, so they gonna, have some type of fun with that or whatever. The whole COVID CDC thing, that's just white folks' version of the Tuskegee experiment that they feel like they went through something. So at the end of the day, America will still be America and we'll still be stupid. And it's going to work out the way it's been working out.
And there you have
Make
it.
America stupid again.
Make America stupid again. America is, was, and will be great. Go ahead and take us out, Dr. Thunder. Once again, this has been another episode of Case Closed. Next week, I believe, if we are back, which we are, here, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, highest level conversation, the most relevant topics in this space, it will be on Dr. Thunder's channel next week. But go ahead, take us out.
Yeah, good conversation, good topics. Yeah, I think the strongest likelihood is that Trump will be president. I'm a third party guy. I won't be voting for him or for Biden. But if I'm honest, then it looks like Trump is going to end up being in there. The other guy doesn't seem to know where he is most of the time. So I think people in general will see that as somewhat of an upgrade. I have issues with both of their politics. But hey, this is what it is. This is how it works in with the binary politics, either this one or that one. All right. As far as the COVID stuff goes, it's tough. Again, it's easy to write from where we are to look back and to say, hey, we could have done it this way. We should have done it that way. We should have paid attention to this and that. We shouldn't have listened to Fauci. We shouldn't have, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But I think one mistake, one thing that we should be aware that is a constant with government is that government does not apologize. They do not apologize. So even when they're making egregious mistakes, if they are pointing a gun at you, telling you to jump through the hoop, all right, then if they're wrong, then they can't apologize because they just pointed a gun at you. And that will make them look like tyrants. So then they have to just double down, triple down, quadruple down on the same stuff. And that's problematic. My preference would have been a less one size fits all sort of approach to this and less silencing of the sort of critics, especially using like private platforms and things to do your censorship. That would have been my preference, but hey, that's done. Now all that I have to get from it, because I, like many, because of the line of work that I'm in, I was more or less forced to get the vaccination. And there's a number of studies that are coming out and suggesting that there's a strong relationship between things like tinnitus and what is the thing when you're dizzy? What is that called? Vertigo. And vertigo for many folks that got the what do you call it? What are we talking about?
The jab, the vaccine.
The jab. That's right. The jab.
Dr. Biden.
That's right. So, yeah, and I will tell you that post jab, and this has never been the case in my entire life. I use my ears for my living, as a musician. I have had constant tinnitus 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never goes away. Screaming pitches at the very, very high pitched sounds. And that's the only thing that has changed. Of course, I've gotten older, but so we don't fully know what the long range effects of these jabs is going to be on folks. So anyhow, that's all I got.
Indeed. And shout out to Mike V. Shout out to the Black Brain Trust. Go check out my recent conversation with Mike V on Black Tech Talks, getting into engineering, getting into all that good stuff, getting to the money, okay? Getting that certification, going into that 1099, becoming your own corporation, and securing your own bag, because it's all going to hell, as LAR would remind us, It's all going to hell. The debt's going to continue to rise, okay? They're going to continue to print more money. Inflation is going to continue to go up. It's a game of get yours, okay? Get your damn bag. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, until next time here on Case Closed, peace. We're out.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what's a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what draws behind the curtain, the face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make me get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make me get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.